Welcome to the Riverbend Awareness Project.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast episode are solely those of the individuals participating and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of Riverbend Media Group or the Riverbend Awareness Project, its affiliates, or its employees. It is important to note that the discussion presented is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as medical advice. Listeners are encouraged to consult with qualified healthcare professionals for any medical concerns or decisions. The Riverbend Awareness Project is a product of Riverbend Media Group.
Welcome to the Riverbend Awareness Project. Today we're talking about National Adoption Month. We've brought my mother and sister-in-law, Julie and Tiffany, in. I felt like they were kind of good people to have on this. We'll let them introduce themselves and tell a little bit why that is.
Hi, my name is Julie, and my first experience with adoption was that my younger brother was adopted. So when I was 11, we adopted him. We got a call on a Monday morning, and my parents picked him up in Los Angeles on Wednesday, and we had a new brother. And so we thought adoption was wonderful. Later in life, when I was much older, we had the opportunity to adopt an 8-year-old boy who became the youngest of 5 boys in our family. And there was an age gap from 16 was our youngest to our then 8-year-old. And so we adopted him at that point.
Hi, I'm Tiffany. I am actually married to her adopted child. So I got that. And then I am also adopted. I was adopted when I was almost 2. So.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for being willing to come in and share your stories. And we appreciate it.
Of course.
And we're excited to learn from you guys. Sorry. Oh, yes. I'm just blabbering over here. So, what are some of the biggest benefits of being an adopted parent? And then what are some of the challenges?
Well, one of the biggest benefits is you get an extra child. And kind of like they just come into your home. You don't have to go through pregnancy and all of that, but you get the opportunity to have another family member, which was a real blessing in our lives to have him come in at that point. The challenge is that when you adopt an older child, they come with a lot of background and some trauma, but it far outweighs, the benefits far outweigh the negative part of it. I'm going to turn it over to Tiffany. She's not an adopted mother. But, for us, really, it was having him come into our lives at a point we had been through a lot. Our oldest son was currently on a mission. So when he came home 5 months later, he had a new brother. And he actually came home in time just to go to his adoption, his official adoption. So it made a huge change in our family. Jeff was
18.
In high school, just graduating. We had a 17-year-old and then a 16-year-old. He must have been 19.
I was 19.
Because we had 19, 18, and 17, 16.
I was 18 when he moved in with us and 19 by the time we adopted him.
Right. So our other boys were much older. We had actually celebrated the night before because we had finished 4 Eagle Scouts. And the next morning, his parents approached us and said, "When would you like him?" And my first thought was, I have to start scouting all over again because he was 8. So, but it was a big challenge as far as the age gap in our children. But it was also a huge blessing that we had a lot of family support. And it was kind of an exciting time to bring another little boy into our family that we thought we could maybe be a better fit for as a family.
All of those things were definitely true. So, Tiffany, for you,
Yeah.
how do you think adoption impacts a child's sense of identity and well-being over time?
I think there's a lot. I think when you like grow up knowing that you're adopted, that's like a pretty huge chunk of your identity. And your family, I mean, like my parents were always very good to make sure that people knew that like this is just like our kid, but they were also very, very excited to tell anyone who would listen my like whole adoption story. So truly everybody that I interacted with knew like the night they got the phone call, the whole thing. And so people always had a lot of questions for me about that. As far as like within my family, like I said, my parents were really good to like, there was never like, I have 4 older kids or older siblings that are my parents' biological kids. I'm the only one adopted. So my parents were really good to like make sure that I knew we were all the same. There wasn't any difference between us for them. But there is like a weird innate biological thing within all of us that like you kind of just know, is this like where I'm supposed to be? Is this like the right fit? Another part for me is that all of my siblings are white. I'm biracial. So if you haven't heard the story from my parents, if you look at our family, one of these things is not like the other. Pretty quickly you figure out that like something has happened here, that there is a pretty obvious difference. So yeah, I think I just kind of always grew up knowing like visually everybody knows there's something different about me. And innately I know that like there's a whole different life that I could be living outside of this family, this area. And that kind of, for me, it kind of messed with my head. Like, I think it just left me with like a lot of questions, and like, you already kind of feel like the odd man out, and you think maybe there's like a solution to that. There's like this magical other family somewhere that I could join, and I could be like, I would feel like right at home, and it would be so easy. And that, I mean, again, to my parents' credit, they tried really hard to help me with that. But that was just something inside that there was nothing that they could have done to help me fix that. So.
You're curious about
Yeah.
biological family.
Yeah, I always had a lot of questions. So, yeah.
Speaking to that idea of connection with biological family, if it is an open adoption, how can that relationship, is there a way to, or goodness, sorry, stumbling over my words, because I want to ask this in a sensitive and thoughtful manner. How can that relationship be healthily, that's not a word, how can that relationship be maintained in a healthy way?
Well, I think that you can try really hard. I don't know that it's always possible. So in our situation, because he was 8 years old and he had 2 younger siblings that he was very close to, and I worked for his grandma with his parents. That's how we ended up with him. There was not a hard line as to this is okay or not okay. Like we were navigating as best we could. Our desire was to keep him as separate from that family as we could, because there was a reason he came to us. But he had 2 little sisters that he was like, I want to see them. I want to be with them. And to his credit, he had pretty much taken care of them for a lot of their lives, and they were very close. So although we tried to keep it separate, when he came to me one day and said, how would you like it if you never saw your sister again? I was like, oh, that was, so we tried to allow that in a very controlled environment. A lot of times we would have them come to our home, but there was still that, why can't I go there? Why can't I? And so we did allow him to for short periods of time. But the older he grew, the less desire he had to go back to that family. And so that made it easier, but it took a long time. I'm talking through his teenage years. He still continued to go over when he was driving himself, or until there became a definite point where he made the decision not to do that anymore. And he still occasionally, but not very often anymore.
So, Tiffany, I know you've been in contact with your birth family.
Mm-hmm.
Has social media helped play a part in the ways that you can connect with them or that you found them to begin with?
Yeah, so it's actually funny. My parents have always like let me have access to my adoption file whenever I wanted it. And in there it had like my biological mother's name, some of like my biological siblings' names were in there. So when I was like 17, I think I like was like, let's just see what Facebook has to offer. And I typed them in, and I actually now realized that I had found them at like the age of 17. It's probably a good thing that I didn't realize that I had. I think I was definitely not mature enough to handle the situation at that age. So when I decided to go looking again, it was after I had my oldest. I started on social media, but my biological family had like tons of different Facebook accounts. So I think I had actually reached out to several of their different Facebook accounts. I just hadn't like hit the one that they were using at the time, that any of them were using at the time. But I reached out to the adoption lawyers via Facebook. Anybody that like, if your name was in my adoption file, you got a Facebook message from me. And then eventually, I mean, I tried before, like, you know, like the white page searches, but apparently I wasn't that invested in finding them because it was like pay $2.50. And I was like, whoa. No, that's too far. That's too far. So I needed something like, I guess free. I guess I was too cheap to really put the work into it. So yeah, I just made it like so accessible because truly, I mean, not anymore. I understand that like maybe people aren't on Facebook all the time, but like at that point, Facebook was like a big thing. So yeah, I mean, that's how I found them. That's how we made the connections. I messaged my biological brother, and I think I said something like, hey, this is super weird. And so like, if I'm way off base, just like ignore this. But do you happen to have a mom named this? And did you maybe have a baby sister that was placed for adoption? And like right away, I got a message back that was like, we were just talking about you. And so, yeah, from there, I mean, most of our communication stays on Facebook now, 8 years later, just because I think it's an easy built-in boundary that's just there. And I think that's appropriate for us. I think that's appropriate for the relationship that we have right now. But yeah, I mean, without social media, I think it would have been a lost cause for me. So.
Have a relationship that you wanted.
Yes. Yeah. It allowed me to establish that. And also another interesting thing, I was adopted from South Carolina. So initially when I started looking, before I turned to Facebook, there was like a week where I was like, oh, I'll just like call the state of South Carolina and say, hello, give me all my information, because I thought like, this is my story. I think I'm entitled to that information as an adopted child. And they shut me down so hard, so many times. They were like, that's a sealed legal file for a minor. And I was like, but I'm an adult now. Like, I'm no longer a minor. Anyways, a lot of states, especially for the time that I was adopted in the 90s, and especially before that, they will not give you anything. You have to go before a court, and like you need a kidney to get anything from the state that you were adopted in. So really, social media kind of, and like, I guess Ancestry kits and things like that are really the only avenue that you have to find your people. So
It's good to know.
yeah, really interesting. I learned a lot.
Yes. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. How has adoption shaped your guys' views of family dynamics?
Well, I think that it depends on the adoption, honestly. Like for my little brother who was adopted at 3 days old, we just grew up. He was our brother. There was no difference. And he has not ever had any desire to find his biological parents at all. And he's 60 years old now. And we talked about it the other day, and he's like, I don't care. I don't need to know. He said for medical, it would be nice because he does have some medical problems. But he said, honestly, you either have the medical problems or you don't. So he didn't really see, even with his medical history, that it was a huge advantage to find his parents, although his mother's name is in his adoption papers also, which is unusual back when he was adopted, but she forgot to sign the termination of parental rights before she left the hospital. And so the attorneys tried to contact her, the hospital tried to contact her, nobody could find her. But my mom found her. And so we've always had her name, but he's just like, it doesn't matter. She was young. She was not able to take care of me. This is my family. So for that part, it didn't make any difference. For when our son came into our family, it shifted our whole family dynamic. Like, we have a 16 to 21-year-old, and now we have an 8-year-old who has, I don't want to say special needs, but special needs in the fact that he needed to do a lot of healing. And so kind of everything in the family became focused in on helping do that. But I don't think that, like now that he's 30 years old, which seems unreal to me, like he's just one of the family. Like he's been with our family now so long that it doesn't seem any different unless we start talking about adoption. And then we're like, oh yeah, Because from the first time that he came and stayed with us for 2 weekends. It was the end of the school year. And then he went, and then he came for the rest of the summer. That was the plan, is just a temporary guardianship, which turned into an adoption. And the first week he went to church with us, he stood up and says, my name is Stetson Adams. And we're like, oh, okay. And he identified as that from that very first point on. So I think it made it easier for us that he wanted to identify with our family. And overall, it's just been a wonderful, positive experience for us. And I'm not saying there weren't hard times. There were, but mostly just because of his not knowing. He was too young to really understand why his parents were letting him go and keeping his siblings. And he was told that there would be an option at the end of summer that he could choose, and he was not ever given that option. Like the first week that he was with us full-time, they came and said, we don't want him back, just do an adoption instead of a guardianship. And so that's what we did. So I think there was that issues to work through with him, but with a lot of counseling and a lot of time, it works out eventually.
Did you have any thoughts to add to how it shaped your perspective on
Yeah, she has to live with him now.
family dynamics?
We're glad somebody lives with him.
Yeah, no, I do have like a very interesting perspective because like I talked to my husband about his feelings, and then I also have my own feelings and my own side of the situation. I think speaking to like my experience in my family, I think and like in conversations with my parents, they have talked a lot about like the initial integration into the family. They didn't, kind of like Mark, my parents did not have a ton of time to like decide if they wanted an extra kid, and they weren't even like in the market to adopt. They got a phone call. And 2 weeks later they came to get me. So it was like pretty quick turnaround for going from like, I think maybe our family is done, to like, hey, there's like somebody who, okay, sure. And so they have spoken about, and I mean, like my siblings are great and they're wonderful. And I think that they took to me very well. And according to my mom, I took to them, my parents, very well. They flew to South Carolina. My mom told me this last night, actually. They flew to South Carolina, and I was living with the adoption attorneys at the time, or staying with them. And the attorneys had put me in the bed that my parents were going to stay in. So like I was zonked out. It was the middle of the night, and woke up and I was just like, cool, all right, these random people that are laying next to me, this is it. Like, this is family. And skipped out of their house gleefully to go live with my new parents. Like, it wasn't a big thing. And so, I mean, I think mine was easy. I was little. I had been back and forth with my birth family, but I don't think there was like a huge connection. So the transition was easy. My family has just gone like above and beyond, making it work and making me be a part of the family. And like, it's never been anything. It's never been any big thing. It's been so easy, and they've been great, and they've made me feel good. And I think Stetson also has that, where he has siblings. I mean, like, you wouldn't have him if it wasn't for Jeff offering the house at the lunch table. So like
that
Jeff was down. Yeah.
I did that.
Yeah. I think he knows he's got brothers that love him, and he's got a mom and dad that think he's great, and they've never made him feel like he's anything. But there's, oddly enough, Stetson kind of looks like you guys. Like,
He does.
you can't even tell, like, they all have similar build. Like, truly, he just kind of fits.
He fit in from the beginning like that.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I think Stetson and I just got really lucky with the families that we came into. Like, it was just ideal situation moving into it for both of us.
What kind of support systems or resources were most helpful through the beginning of the adoption journey?
For us, it was family. We had really good family support, and we also had a really good counselor for him. And I'm not sure how much Stetson got out of counseling, although he went every week forever and ever. But I had the last 10 minutes of his appointment every week. And I think that was extremely helpful, that he would go in, and I'm not sure really how much he divulged, but Jim could pick up what he needed, and then he would say, you need to try this and this and this with him. You need to do this and this and this to make transition easier. You need, And so I think that was a huge help for us, was counseling. And like I said, maybe not as much for Stetson, but as it was for the rest of the family, because at the same time we had two of our other sons going to counseling for different reasons, that it also, they would talk about their relationship with Stetson and how it could be better and what they could do to make it easier. And so that, and we really, from both sides of our family, had great support. Like, they accepted him just like he'd always been there. And so that made it really easy. I don't think we needed a lot of outside support beyond that, because he just fit in. We were lucky in that he started at a new school. And so when he went into that school, he'd already been with us a whole summer. And so he made that transition into school easy, because he was just the new kid. He wasn't there in the middle of the year under weird circumstances or anything like that. He just came in as the new kid in school, and he made that transition pretty quickly and easily as far as those things go. The hard part for him was letting go of the past because of the age he was at, I think, and still wanting that connection and trying to understand why he wasn't still there. But most of the time he seemed okay with that. So it worked out.
We were definitely lucky that way. He had his moments where he wasn't the happiest, but he always came back from it really quick.
Which I feel like would make sense, right? If you're older, you want to understand it. So that was
And
that you guys were working together to make sure you understood how he was feeling and had help to help him understand his feelings. That's really cool.
And I don't know that you ever understand that as a child, ever, still.
I think even as an adult, he still
struggles
has
with
a lot
why
of questions.
he was given away, but his siblings weren't. But it wasn't his fault. That was, you can totally place the blame there on his parents, that they just weren't able to connect with him and raise him. As a boy, they were more than willing to keep the girls, but not for whatever reason they had. And that is the one thing I regretted, is that I did not go to the termination of parental rights, which I could have done, because then I could have heard their reasoning as to why they were doing this, but I just felt like it wasn't necessary at the time. Now I wish, that's probably my one regret, is that I didn't do that, because I think if we had been able to at least tell him those things, it might have helped him. May not have, but
Could have.
So what has been the most positive and joyful part of your guys' adoption stories?
Well, we have Stetson. That's the most positive part. We have another family member that we love, and now he's married, and I have 3 little granddaughters with him. Like, what can be more positive than that? Like, it has not been a negative, and you hear adoption stories where children are adopted and then they turn 18 and that's the end. They don't want anything to do with either family, or we haven't had that. Like, going forward, it has always been a positive experience that he was part of our family. And he brings a fun part to it. And now we have more family because of it, which I love. So,
And the same with Uncle Mark.
yeah,
That's a whole branch of our family that we wouldn't have
if he wasn't here. So, to me, it's just the more, the better. But I know that's not always the case. I mean, you hear a lot of adoption stories that don't work, or that are, more traumatic, but in our case, it's all been positive.
What about you, Tiffany? What's been the most joyful part of your adoption story?
I mean, I think that there's lots. I mean, I think similar to like Julie just said, there's not been, the hard stuff has far out, or the good stuff has far outweighed whatever tricky feelings I had around it. I mean, I have really phenomenal parents who I love, and I think that like they did their best. They did not know anything about adoption going into this. And they took it and they ran with it. And I have siblings who are just like above and beyond. And I don't know, it's just like, it's crazy to think that like I could have not had them in my life. And I mean, adoption was the connection between Stetson and I that like when we first started talking. So like somehow I got a husband out of it. I mean, my biological family, I think that for the situation that they have been dealt and my biological siblings have grown up with and my biological mother has dealt with, I think that like they have turned out really well. And I think that like the relationship that we have is good. I haven't had the opportunity to go meet them in person, but like we've been building a relationship for the last almost 8 years. And I think that that's really neat that like now 10 to 18-year-old Tiffany that had all these questions now has like some resolution and some solution to all of that wondering. I think, I just think like there's nothing for me. I know, like Julie said, that there's lots of other adoption situations. I don't have any complaints. I think it's worked out really well for me. I think I got lucky. So like no downsides for me.
What message would you guys like to share with others during National Adoption Month?
Go for it. Like for me, adoption has been positive. With my brother and with Stetson. Like both circumstances have been really positive. And right now we have a niece who is adopting out of the foster program. So I see a lot of good. I know that on the internet there's a lot of, you're buying children and believe me, that is not, I'm sure there must be cases where that happens. Like there's all kinds of adoptions and all kinds of circumstances. But for us, that didn't have anything to do with it. It was literally, we were at lunch with my boss, Jeff and I, and she was worried about her grandson and about his behaviors and what was happening in their home. And Jeff said, we'll take him for the summer. And
So
I'm like,
I thought it would be cool to have a little brother for a summer.
yeah. And she's like, would you really? And I said, no, probably. And then I promptly forgot about it. That was on a Thursday. Monday morning, his parents came into the office and said, when do you want him? And then I had to call my husband and say, would you like another little boy? And he immediately said yes. And that was kind of
We'd
how
watched
quick it
Stetson
happened.
before that. Like we'd babysat him a few times.
No, I
No?
think you have a bad memory.
We
I
all
had met him in the
though.
office. We knew who he was. And I knew his sisters. They came into the office all the time. But he had an aide who took care of him a lot of the time and took him everywhere. So I had only seen him a few times. But he was just the cutest little thing. There was no way that you could say no to him. He was just... And he came, and I'll never forget, it was my grandma's 90th birthday or 91st, something. And he was with us that weekend, and my now daughter-in-law, who knew nothing about the adoption or what was going on in our family, came to take family photos. And this little boy just kept darting into the pictures. And she's like, who is he? And we're like, oh, he's our new son. So it was just, I don't know, it was just a very natural. When he came, he fit right in. I don't know. It was a good experience from the beginning overall. Like I said, there are hard times when you adopt and you have a child with a lot of questions, always. I don't care what age you get them at. They're going to have questions at some point in their life. But it was overall such a good experience all the time that I would tell anybody who has the opportunity to do it, no matter the circumstances. Like I said, ours was very random. My brother, we wanted a brother. When I was little, we had 2 girls and a boy. My mom couldn't have any more children. She went to an attorney. When a little boy popped up, they called and said, he's here, and we got him. So I don't think it's always you're buying a child or, either way, our families would have been okay. But the opportunity to have another child that needed help or needed a home became that joy that you get from having a new family member. So I think you have to know that you can do it, and it's hard. And in Stetson's adoption, we always laugh because he was born on April Fool's Day, and we adopted him on Halloween. And the judge thought it was really funny that the Addams family was in court on Halloween. So there were a lot of jokes made about that. But the judge said, he's yours. You don't give him back when he's a teenager and there's problems. And we got like a 30-minute lecture on pretty much why you shouldn't adopt. He's always yours. The problems are yours. You're always responsible. On and on and on. And I'm like, this is so stupid. But at one point in life, I'm like, oh, now I get what he said. Because it would have been easy sometimes to just say, I'm done. But it would have been easy to do that with any of our boys. Like when you raise boys, you're asking for that. So to have one more just was wonderful. It was a good experience.
I mean, I think looking at maybe, I guess, advice or suggestions I would give adopted kids, I think my biggest thing is that it's okay to have questions. It's okay. And it's like, it's normal and it's natural that you have questions and that you want to know where you came from. You want to know your origin. And I think a lot of times as an adopted kid, and I've talked to a lot of adopted kids, you get a lot of noise from either your adopted family or like random people that feel like they need to voice their opinion on it, that like you're ungrateful or you're being disrespectful by having those questions. And that's just like so insane to me. That's so insane. It's so normal. It's so natural. That's like a big part of your story. And it's totally, frankly, healthy to have those questions. And it's healthy to seek that out. It's just knowing, like, I think a lot of times adopted kids go into like looking for their biological families and thinking, I think especially when it's a closed adoption, it's very easy as an adopted kid to have like built this fantasy and like there's this magical family somewhere and they have gazillions of dollars and they go on vacation all the time and I'm going to go there and it's going to be great. And this family that's like bumming me out is going to be like so sad that they didn't give me. Anyways, you can build like this fantasy land around these people that you don't know. And I think it's normal and it's natural to have those questions. I think it's totally healthy and totally fine to go out seeking those. I think you have to tamper your expectations a little bit. I would say, I mean, how do I want to say this? Go in with no expectations, and just kind of allow the relationship. I'm very fortunate in that my biological family was really excited to find me. They were really excited to make that connection. I know that that is not always the case and that some biological families have closed that chapter of the book and they are not interested in reopening it. And I can't imagine that rejection, that just has to be so painful. But yeah, I think I would say my advice is have those questions. That's totally normal. Have like honest conversations with with the family you're raised with your adopted family. Because I think for me, a big plus in reaching out to my biological family was that my parents knew that I needed that and they were super willing. My mom has said, if you want to go down there, let me know. I'm happy to come with you. Like, if you want me there, I'll go. So I think you can make it like a growing and almost like not a bonding, but like a connecting experience for both sides of your family. But yeah, have the questions, reach out to people. I understand that there's like shame and stigma around being an adopted kid and like wanting those answers. But there shouldn't be. And so, my encouragement is always, if you have those questions, don't feel ashamed, don't feel embarrassed. Go out and find it. And again, the answers might not be what you were hoping for, but I think sitting with the unknown and all of the questions inside of you is also not the best feeling in the world. So yeah, I always say, give it a shot. Just keep your expectations. Nothing. Yes. Yeah. Just nothing. Go in there, just blind open and see what happens. So.
Well, thank you guys for sharing your stories and your feelings and all of the information. I've learned a lot and appreciate the open-heartedness that you guys have. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Riverbend Awareness Project. You can find episodes wherever you get podcasts or on the Riverbend